I don't have time for this bullshit.
Ha! Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. All this guy ever does is BS. Anyway, it's time for another edition of BSing with Big Nate.
That was One in the Chamber to the Gallows on another edition of BS with Big Nate. We are going international today to our dear friends in the North Great White North. I don't know if we can call that. I don't know. Anyway, I'm joined today by drummer for One in the Chamber, Mr. Jared Harris. Jared, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having us, Big Nate.
Okay, so before I go any further, have you guys gotten a ton of snow yet?
You know what? It does not look like Christmas here. We had a big snowfall maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and nothing since, and it's almost all melted. So I would say we did, and now we don't.
All right, fair enough. So we're not here to talk about the weather. We're not here to talk about Canada. We are here to talk about To the Gallows. As a track, I want to describe it, and I'm going to use a word here, and I want you to know I mean it with all of the respect and weight that it should have, but it's kind of swampy. It feels like bad things, like if you were watching a movie, bad things would happen to this song.
It's haunting, yeah.
Yeah, like there's something, and to me, that's something that always stands out. Those tracks are always 9 times out of 10 going to be my favorite. But I want to ask, like, what does it feel like drumming on a track like that?
You know what? It's a weird song like that for us because I don't think we do haunting a lot, and I like the word you use, swampy. I like that a lot. We don't tend to do that, and it all kind of started just with Cecil Eugene, our guitar player. He had gotten into a digital delay pedal, and he just started playing those open chords at the beginning, and then he burst into that like really explosive heavy part, and instantly, we were at band practice, and instantly, like I was like, okay, that's what we're gonna work on because that's cool. And I think Chris and Mike both felt the exact same way because Chris and I, Chris is our bass player. We instantly started jumping on that groove, and Mike is reaching for his lyric book and he starts scribbling out words. And for me, with drumming on this song, I wanted to take a really simple approach because it is a very simple song, right? But to convey that haunting emotion, I didn't want to run in there with too much that suddenly covers up the feeling, the groove, the whole vibe of the song. So I just kind of sat back and just kept the pulse going. But yeah, it's definitely haunting.
I like what you said there, that you kind of just sat back and kept it simple. And I think a lot of times, I mean, particularly if you look at the period of hard rock in the 80s, it was all bigger, louder, faster, we are glam rock. And I like that subtle approach that like you can still have this song that rocks and drives, but it doesn't need to be way overdone. And I will say you kept it simple, but it still sounded like keeping the beat is something that's crucially important to the sound. But you definitely were an incredibly contributing factor to the swampy feel of the track.
Thank you so much.
What was the approach, on obviously he got the new delay pedal, and then Mikey grabbed the lyric book, but from conception to fruition, what was the process like?
I think it was very spontaneous and then it wasn't. And I think that's the way it goes for some of our favorite songs that we've written. I don't remember what we were supposed to be practicing at practice that one time, but it definitely was not writing a new song. It was probably for some upcoming show because, this was back in summer 2019 when we could do shows. But for us, it was this sort of process that, we jumped on this groove and it kind of just went out of our hands and it almost formed immediately. And the question of structure came up, and earlier that summer we had actually covered Alice in Chains' Rooster, so we decided let's give a nod to them, and let's do, after the first chorus, we'll do a guitar solo, which is something we've never done. So immediately it was a little different that way, and then we just kind of repeated the structure. It's very symmetrical that way. And for a while we were wondering, because it's not our typical song, there's really no like signature riff, and it's a little more down tempo, gloomy. So for us, it was a matter of, we were kind of questioning, like, is this everything we can do to make this song what it needs to be? and we toyed around with some different ideas, and we tried to make things work. And in the end, I think we all agreed to kind of go back to what we had initially done. And as a result, To the Gallows is a much more simple song, but it's just got so much feeling and emotion to it. It started off simple, and we tried to add different things to it, and just nothing topped that original sort of spontaneous jam that we had with it.
You said something there that stuck out to me. I the whole time I'm listening to the track, this sounds familiar. It sounds like something you've heard before, but you can't quite pinpoint. And there it is. It's that Alice in Chains influence.
Yeah, it's, as a band, we're all coming from different influences. Christian Dotto, our bassist, is a huge metalhead. Cecil Eugene, he loves stuff that most guitar players would hate, and he hates stuff that most guitar players would love. You never know what's going to stick with him and what, isn't. But I met him through jazz school. Him and I both went to York University to study jazz performance, right? And Mike is huge into classic rock, especially 70s and 80s classic rock. And like, I grew up listening to that stuff, and I still love it. But for me, 90s rock was always a huge influence on my own performance and songwriting. So when it came time to do this song, and I kind of heard the tones that Cecil was going for with his guitar, before Mike started singing and brought in this whole like bluesy Robert Plant vibe with his vocals, I heard Alice in Chains and Deftones, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And yeah, for me, like it was really cool to kind of put that together. And it's even more amazing that other people hear that in there, and they're comparing the song, and even some of our other songs they compare to Alice in Chains. And for me, they're one of my favorites, so that's always very exciting to hear.
No, okay, so we're gonna sidestep for a second, and we're not gonna talk about the chamber. We're gonna talk about. Did you watch the Alice in Chains Founders Award ceremony?
I did. I loved it.
So what stood out? I want to pick your brain. What stood out the most to you, cover wise?
Oh, you know what? I think Fishbone doing Them Bones was one of my favorite moments. That was so unsuspecting and quirky and twisted and amazing. Chris Cornell's daughter, the way her voice sounded like his, and Norah Jones, like goosebumps all over, and I'm a big nerd for Dave Navarro on guitar, so Man in the Box with him and Taylor Hawkins on drums and Corey Taylor on vocals, that was another highlight for me.
See, that was the one that stood out most to me. My second was Mastodon doing Angry Again.
That one was good too, yeah.
Like, because when I saw Mastodon on the list, I was like, I love Mastodon. I love Alice in Chains. Not really sure where the two should meet, but I think it was such a fitting tribute. And I loved the whole thing. I sat down and got no work done that day.
Oh, no.
On air at 10, I started watching. So I watched it the next morning because I've got two children at home, so I have to kind of consume when I can. But from 8 to about 10:30, I was just sitting there, transfixed to my computer screen, watching everything play out.
Absolutely. I loved it. Front to back. Like, normally these things, there's covers in there, and you're like, okay, whatever. But I thought the whole thing was very well curated. I'm a huge Soundgarden fan, so seeing, Kim and Ben and Matt together again was amazing. And seeing that Kim was ripping solos on like 3 different covers, like for me was fantastic.
It was a beautiful watch. All right, we're gonna get back to One in the Chamber. Anytime someone brings up Alice in Chains, that's my go-to now. Did you see the Founders Awards?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been more or less the same with a bunch of friends as well. So.
All right, so we're looking ahead. We're at the tail end of 2020. We're looking ahead to 2021. What's on the horizon for One in the Chamber?
I can't talk about 2021 without talking about 2020 because, like everyone else, this was not the year we planned for. And going back into like spring, summer of 2019, we received like grant money from the government of Canada to make music, which for us was a huge stepping stone because we got it through a company called Factor, and they're this, it's almost like a stamp of approval in the Canadian industry. It's a very, like, the money's great, but like the recognition is, it carries weight to it. And so, we've been planning to get into the studio and make 2020 this big year of regular releases, music videos, and as much shows as we can humanly fit in to our schedule. And we hit the studio. We went to Phase One studio with Murray Daigle and Mike Smith. Same studio and same engineers and producer as our previous EP, I've Got Something to Say. We hit the studio in January and finished off some sessions throughout February, just as planned. We released our first single, Blow, with a music video at the end of March, early April, just as planned, but COVID hit, right? So our release show for that single was cut. All of our spring shows were cut. And, we had plans to basically more or less immediately film the next music video for a completely different single. At the moment, To the Gallows was not even being considered for a second single. We still, we love the song, and after we heard it recorded, we were like, this is probably one of our favorite songs, but I don't think it's going to be a single. We thought it was too weird to kind of put it out there as like a, here's what we're doing, right? So all of that was kind of scrapped, and then fall came, and we had been working behind the scenes on another music video for a very ambitious script that involved lots of people, which, Ontario, our province was kind of in the clear to do a video like this. We had the date booked with Diego Del Rio, our fantastic video director, producer, just all around fantastic guy behind the camera. And like that, the restrictions clicked back in, and suddenly this video was very illegal. So, we were talking with Diego, and we were like, okay, how do we do, we have this day booked, right? So we filmed, we made an entirely new video concept, and we decided, let's do To the Gallows. It's such a weird song to end the year off on, but let's do it. That's how this year went. And next year, I'm hoping that we are, we've kind of got a little bit of a swing to our step right now. We've got some momentum going from between the two singles, and we've done a couple live streams, and, we're just doing our best to be socially responsible, but still, an active rock band. It's important to us that we're kept safe, and, our families are safe, the people we work with, right? It's very important to us that we're doing things safely, but we're looking to do more of it, right? And, we had some fantastic experience with live streams this year. And, like I said, we were in the studio early this year. We're still sitting on a lot of unreleased music from those sessions that we're looking to release throughout 2021.
Excellent. I mean, that's a lot to look forward to. I know a lot of bands are kind of in that same boat where they've got material they've been working on, and then, of course, you can't really plan for it. So pretty much everyone was universally affected. Like I think of Pearl Jam, who release date, album ready to go to ship, and then everything locks down, so they have to cancel their Gigaton tour. And I just think, Eddie Vedder's doing pretty all right for himself, but that kind of sucks. So I mean,
I gotta say on Pearl Jam though, I unfortunately could not get tickets. Their first shows of the tour were in Toronto, and they sold out like that. And now I've still got my fingers crossed that the rescheduled dates will have tickets.
Yeah, they'll open up seats. But I do also want to mention, you brought up the music video for To the Gallows. I was gonna ask, and I completely forgot, because this is just really, we're just having a conversation here. So that was shot during COVID, and there's something that I've noticed about music videos that are coming out, TV shows, commercials, movies. You can tell when something was shot during this, usually.
Yeah.
The Gallows doesn't have that distinction. Granted, and I think it's because of the track, where it's just kind of everything's subtle. It's not overly ambitious. So it doesn't have that distinct mark, because I would have thought you guys filmed it at some point like last year.
Yeah, so you know what, that never actually, that was, you know, that's a happy accident, I think. To you know, it's with Diego, you know, he heard the song and he was like, okay, we want to do something eerie, right? Our last video, Blow, was very modern. We used a lot of neon lights, and Kathleen Faubert, our video producer on that one, she surprised us with like this neon chamber that she made for us, and it's, you can see it in the background, and like we showed up and we were like, what's this? And she's like, if it works, it's the thing that's going to make the music video. And we're like, oh, okay. And she hung it up and it was fantastic. But we wanted to go in a completely different direction. It's a completely different song tonally, and you know, we just kind of shot it to be this dark, this sort of black and white visual, and Diego kind of made the camera moving a lot more, and he wanted to go for more of a gritty sort of old school video shoot, in that sense, kind of in tone with like a Super 8 camera. Now, we never initially planned to make it look like it was not COVID time, but that was, you know, for us, it was only the four of us in the room plus Diego filming. It was at a practice studio, the Jam Chamber, which is in Toronto. And for us, you know, it was still within the, like the studio was open, and we were within the amount of people we were allowed to have in an indoor space. So we were still making sure that we were doing things safely and responsibly. But yeah, I mean, for me, I'm glad that you didn't think it was shot during COVID, right? I think in 10, 20 years, people will look back at some of the content that was coming out at this time, and they'll be like, oh yeah, that was that time. But I think if you can somehow make it seem that it wasn't from that time, that adds, you know, hopefully down the road. I mean, who am I to say timeless, right? Because it's our stuff, and it's, you know, it's 3 weeks old. But like, you know, it kind of doesn't, if it looks like it's from COVID time, it almost dates it in a certain way, you know? Like certain editing techniques really make things look like they're from the 80s. And, you know, it wasn't a concern of ours. We didn't think of it, but now that you say that, I'm glad that it has that effect.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not what I'm saying, isn't to take anything away. I mean, people are creating out of a terrible situation. So it's not to take anyone like where it's obvious. Like I've talked to a band that completely just leaned into it and went for it, and they all had like masks and it was like with their branding on there. And so, I mean, there's a right way to do it, but I think not addressing it and I mean, that gritty Super 8 feel, that's exactly what's there. I mean, with the way it works, to me, it fits in like a very 90s, you know, the videos we're still watching to this day of Nirvana, Alice in Chains, like it stands out. So bravo. I think you guys did a great job, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for One in the Chamber. Give them some love on Facebook. Jared, thank you so very much for joining me, and you have a lovely day. Happy holidays.
Fantastic time. You as well. Happy holidays, and stay well this new year.
Thank you. You too.